voice of innovation powering the smart manufacturing movement. As an energized ecosystem, we are unique. We work tirelessly to drive industry's productivity and competitiveness ahead in the United States. We are built upon the network of our dedicated members' active leadership and engagement. At CESMII, we see a way forward, and we recognize industry's need for a clearer, more actionable vision for the smart, data-driven future of manufacturing. Growing manufacturing's productivity, sustainability, and competitiveness. We seek to revolutionize manufacturing by obliterating the barriers for rapid change and innovation. Manufacturing of tomorrow is an exciting space where the innovators, the trailblazers, and the makers all thrive, and where our brand is truly home.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jake Hall. I'm the Manufacturing Millennial, and thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to be talking about how smart manufacturing is impacting technology and culture. We have a fantastic lineup today from industry experts and thought leaders who have been in the manufacturing industry for combines of decades, and we're really going to have a conversation today. So if you are joining us right now, go ahead and like it and share the conversation. Send this message to someone else who you think would be important to know about what type of how smart manufacturing is impacting the industry. So we're going to go ahead and introduce our guests right now. First of all, we have John Dyck from CESMII. We have Nick, who's the Executive Director of Isaacs at Case Western. Sherri McCleary, who's the Executive Director of the Digital Foundry at Penn State. Ragu, I am totally going to botch the last name, so I'm not even going to say it. I apologize. Ragu is the SMIC Director at Purdue. And then also we have Ryan Cahalane, who is the President of the Industrial Tech at Feyen Zylstra. Welcome everyone to the conversation.
Thanks for having us. This is awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Perfect. So looks like John Dyck just had an exit. So we're going to have him come back in just a second and join us. But how's everyone's week so far? How's the industry going? You know, anything major happening so far in 2022?
I'll start. We've been it's been really wild first month of the year. I'm actually calling in from Lighthouse Foods here in Lowell, Michigan, and they're embarking on a pretty massive smart manufacturing undertaking, and it's kind of the same story almost every customer I go to. So it's a good time to be in the space.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, John, welcome back. Glad you could join us. We're going to kick things off right away. This event is being partnered with CESMII, and really our goal is to share more about what CESMII is doing as an organization and institute. So, you know, John, introduce yourself. What's your background? What is CESMII? And then let's get kicked into really why everyone else here on the panel is going to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, thanks. My technology kind of acted up there a little bit. Can you hear me okay?
We got you.
Yes. Awesome. Great. Well, my name is John Dyck. I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at CESMII, and it's an honor to be here with you, Jake, and with the rest of the team here. As Ryan just alluded to, smart manufacturing is a vital part of our competitiveness here in the United States of America in terms of manufacturing, and it's the first time in my career where I can honestly say that the plant floor, manufacturing operations is the place to be. This is where innovation is finally taking place. Manufacturing operations is finally becoming a strategic aspect for manufacturing companies, which for so many years has not been the case. So I'm thrilled here to represent CESMII and thrilled to introduce the rest of the Smart Manufacturing Innovation Centers here on the call with us today. CESMII, for those of you that may not be familiar, is one of the Manufacturing USA Institutes, one of 16. We each have a different area of focus, and ours happens to be smart manufacturing. So we are funded by the federal government. So we are not the federal government, but we receive taxpayer funds from the federal government, in our case, the Department of Energy, to focus on our specific area of expertise. And Smart manufacturing, from our perspective, is about how to transform plant floor operations, the enterprise, and the supply chain with the more effective use of information from the plant floor. The whole process of building smart manufacturing systems and digital transformation is still far too costly and complex, whether you're a Fortune 500 manufacturer, and certainly if you're a small, mid-sized manufacturer. And so our goal is to work with this ecosystem, bring the smartest minds together and the most innovative thinkers together to fund the kind of innovation necessary to drive down the cost and complexity of smart manufacturing. And we talk about democratization, the democratization of smart manufacturing. And that happens in the realm of both technology, but also in the realms of culture and how people engage and how organizations can be structured and trained and more effectively put to use in thinking and deploying innovative strategies on the plant floor throughout the enterprise and supply chain. So we're a consortia, private-public partnership, and we engage with manufacturers, with machine builders, with systems integrators, technology providers, and of course, academia to bring all of this innovation, to fund the innovation and bring it back to the marketplace in the most creative ways possible. And I know we'll talk today about these smart manufacturing innovation centers, but that's one of the key strategies that we are privileged to partner with in terms of deploying these ideas, this knowledge, these technologies in the manufacturing marketplace.
No, that's fantastic. John, thanks for that summary. So as you're building out this innovation center and this network of collaborators working together, there is currently 4 existing smart manufacturing innovation centers that are already out there. And where are those located?
So there are a series of existing, and as you alluded to, a number of new ones, which we'll be introduced to today. But the existing ones are at North Carolina State University, with the great focus on pulp and paper, on biopharma and non-wovens materials. We have a SMIC, a Smart Manufacturing Innovation Center at RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York, focused on discrete manufacturing and machine tools, job shop type machining. We have a great, our headquarters is at UCLA in California. And of course, we have a SMIC at Texas A&M where we're focused on energy. And so that's the existing footprint of SMICs today.
No, that's fantastic. And today we're going to be introducing 4 more. So let's go ahead and get jumped into it. Sherri, I'm going to go ahead and kick off with you. So first of all, welcome. Thanks for being a part of today's conversation.
Thanks for inviting me to be a part of it. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you on. So before we get kicked off with the question, tell us about yourself. What's your background? How did you get into, being the executive director of the Digital Foundry? What's been your path in getting here?
So I come to this not through the academic track, but I come with over 30 years in industry. I was with Alcoa and then Arconic for over 30 years, and various positions, all involving deploying of new processes and new products, new business models, and that culminated in being the research and development director, where part of my responsibilities included the global deployment of some automation and smart manufacturing across our global operations. When I left there, I went on to join Kennametal for a few years to start up a new business for them based on 3D printing. So again, a very digitally based and connected technology. There was very much a focus on how the connectivity and the digital nature of it enabled new business models, new products, and new opportunities. But throughout those last few years, both at Arconic and at Kennametal, I was engaged with Penn State as a advisor on this concept for the Digital Foundry. Having seen firsthand the challenges of deploying some of this technology, even in the large organization where you had a lot of resources at your disposal, I saw the challenge of both the technology implementation, but also the cultural impact and the talent challenges. So I started thinking about how do we become a help for smaller businesses who didn't have the resources we did. And that was kind of the genesis for a lot of the discussions with Penn State about how do we create a center that will focus on helping manufacturers to stay current, relevant, competitive, giving them access and opportunities to kind of understand and de-risk technology, but also be an asset for both the future and the current workforce as we're going through these massive transitions in the way we make things and the way we do business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit it right there. You're really focusing on the local workforce and economic development with organizations, right in Pennsylvania, but in all the locations as well. You've been developing multiple training programs that are in person and also online. So I guess the question is why is it important to be working with the local development and educating around smart manufacturing? One of the biggest things that I always look at is the biggest change is local. And I think, that's the big value that we're getting out of all these individual centers that are popping up is each one has its own value, but they're making an impact locally. Why is that important?
So I think where we sit and why we are where we are addresses that question pretty directly. We chose to not sit on the Penn State New Kensington campus, but to sit in the heart of what is a typical story of a Rust Belt community. New Kensington has a very rich history. It's the birthplace of the aluminum industry, the birthplace of Alcoa. It was an incredibly thriving community, not only from the standpoint of the industry that was there and things that literally changed the course of history, but it also became, as a result of that, a center of commerce and a center of culture, and was one of those places that everybody went there to shop, to eat, to go to the theater. And when industry pulled out in the 70s and 80s, the community went through a pretty rapid decline. And so I think it just points to the fact that manufacturing is so vital to the economic health on a local level, and then that expands out nationally and even internationally. So when you take away those goods producing kind of opportunities that are consumers of talent, of energy, of materials, of transportation, the impact on the local economy can be pretty profound. So we intentionally put our new building that we'll be moving into in about 2 months in the heart of that community that has fallen on hard times. And so we want to be a resource. We want to be seen as a sign of hope and help. But I also think, having been in the industry, we were fighting the talent challenges we all discussed for decades, the coming tsunami of retiring boomers.
Absolutely.
But yet we didn't know what to do about that. And so now we see the supply chain crunch. So all these things are culminating really with the pandemic, where it accelerated the retirements, it accelerated the chinks in our armor when it came to supply chain. And when those things come back on shore, they're not going to come back in the same way they left. We're going to do things differently. We have different technologies. We have to reskill our workforce. So we have to retool our manufacturing floors. So maybe a long-winded answer to your question, but I just think that all of this is so vital, and that where we find ourselves in this really turning point for manufacturing is that we really have to be serious about retooling our operations and our talent.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, heavy focus on retooling and reskilling our talent. So thank you all for who are joining us today so far. Looks like we have over 150 active viewers listening to this conversation right now. So we see you in chat. All of the key the speakers, including myself, can see you guys making comments in the chat. So Dan Aldridge, we saw that you're interested in joining the organization. We'll make sure Jillian or someone from CESMII reaches out to you. And Jacqueline Crouch from United Kingdom is joining us today. And George Leary, I'm glad you're looking forward to this conversation. Hopefully you can take something out of it. But if there are comments or there's questions, feel free to ask them in the chat as we go along. The whole benefit of live programs is so we can interact with you, the audience, and the listeners. So if you have questions that come up, or there's something that you like or you want to reiterate, go ahead and put that in chat. We'll try and bring those comments up on screens as we're continuing the conversation. But this is really an education of how smart manufacturing is impacting everyone. And we also want to hear other people's thoughts as well. So if you're enjoying the conversation, make sure you're sharing it down below. Go ahead, click on the link, click the share button, post it right now so other people in the industry can learn about smart manufacturing. So Sherri, thank you so much for that. I'm going to hand it over to our next guest. Ragu, thank you so much for joining us today. You're at Purdue University. I was just down in Indiana a couple weeks ago, but Purdue is not only part of the smart manufacturing, not only a smart manufacturing innovation center, you're also part of the manufacturing extension partnership, and you're partnering with a lot of different manufacturers. And one thing I noticed right away was you're doing a lot with cloud and edge-based information and AI. I would love for you to dive deeper into how is the data in cloud impacting smart manufacturing, and how is that reducing the barrier for adoption when using data? So thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Jake. So, it's no secret that in this country, less than 5% of the data that is being collected is getting used or being monetized. So there's lots and lots of data being collected. And, our goal when we made this application to CESMII, to establish a SMIC at Purdue, our goal is to help industries on how to use this data and how to monetize the data. So, we felt that, it's very important that we establish these partnerships, particularly with companies like Microsoft and MEP. So, and I would say this is not just a partnership, but it's a very strategic partnership because, when we talk about Microsoft is a huge tech giant. And also similar to companies like Microsoft, we have companies like Google, Amazon, and all of them. And we are blessed with corporations like this because what they have done is that they have helped bring data-driven manufacturing to a whole new level. So John was talking about democratization of smart manufacturing. Now, part of that process of democratization of smart manufacturing also comes along with that the democratization of computing. So we are, like I said, we are really blessed to have companies like Microsoft. So we feel our partnership is very, very strategic with them because they are helping us to democratize computing to a point where you don't need to have a PhD data scientist in every organization to be able to use data that they are collecting. So, and we all know that there's never going to be enough data scientists that is going to be produced in this nation. So, so companies like Microsoft are providing us the type of tools so that we can now bring this computing power to manufacturing plant floors, so they too can start using these tools. So this partnership is very strategic, and again, it's going to the point where our hope is that as we go through this journey of partnering with Microsoft, we can help lower the barrier to adoption of smart manufacturing, particularly with the use of data. And with MEP, they too are a very strategic partner, and we are collaborating with them in two areas, two geographic areas. One, we have a very robust and pretty, good size MEP at Purdue. And for those of you who are wondering what is MEP, MEP is a manufacturing extension partnership, and they are an outreach arm to provide services to many manufacturers in this, in this nation. So we are partnering with two MEPs. One is at Purdue, and the other one is at West Virginia University. And so, they too bring a lot of value to the SMIC that we have established here at Purdue, because they've already built a huge network of industries whom they have been serving for many, many years right now. So with our goal of, service to the industry, service to manufacturing, we would like to, rather than build our own network, we want to leverage their network, meaning leverage their platform to further scope our outreach to industries. So it has been a great partnership, particularly with Microsoft and MEP, and I can't tell you enough about what they mean to our SMIC here at Purdue.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't know, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, there is one located in every single state. So the parent organization of MEP, I believe, is the NIST organization, which is the National Institute of Science and Technology. I believe is the higher government program. So if you are within any state here in the United States, I think also it's in Costa Rica. I know there's 51. There's one other outside the U.S., but there is a manufacturing extension partnership in every single state. So wherever you are, look them up, find them, and get involved, because they are a resource for you to get connected with other people in the industry, and like that, and also educate you as well. So there's a lot of opportunities. I forgot to ask at the beginning, how did you get involved with where you are now? What's your path from getting to where you started in the industry to now being the Smart Manufacturing Innovation Director for Purdue?
So, I've been in higher education, going on to my 28th year right now. So in 1996, my background is bachelor's, master's, PhD in electrical engineering, but I've always had a very, very strong affinity to manufacturing. So after I got my first job in 1994, I was looking to, I didn't have any industry background. So I was looking to how can I build that, industry background. So I actually started providing customized training for industries, and it was an aluminum industry in Southeast Missouri. So I did that for about 3.5 years. And after that, I felt, hey, this is so cool, because, we are making a difference for industry. At the university that I was at, Southeast Missouri State University in Cape Girardeau, I actually invited the Missouri MEP to establish an office at my university. And through that, we were providing customized training. So rather than me traveling to each and every industry to provide training, they come to our site and we were providing training. And I can say that in the 10 years that I've been at Southeast Missouri State, we have provided training for more than 2,000 people. So, and again, the impact that you're creating. And then in 2011, I moved to Purdue, and I still wanted to keep that connection with, with industry. So when I saw what John and his team were doing at CESMII, I thought this is exactly what we need here at Purdue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, when we think about Purdue, there's a lot of basic research going on. Now, we need to now take that research and take it to industry. We need to now put that research and findings to good use so that we can help U.S. manufacturing. So that is what led to the development of CESMII at Purdue. The SMIC at Purdue.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. So I think that kind of hit on one of the questions. So Simon asked, each advancement of technology is accompanied by a new skill of requirements, right? We're continuously learning as technology grows. How are the panelists seeing the role of learning and development? Upskilling, reskilling is constant and not a single point. I think you kind of hit on that a little bit right there, Ragu, of just talking about, you've had thousands of people come through as part of that training program, which was huge. And that's one of the things where tomorrow I'm going to be touring a local community college, Grand Rapids Community College is where I'm located at, and Feyen Zylstra, where I work, is located at. And the interesting thing about them is their average student is actually between 34 to 40, because they're going back, they're being sent by manufacturers, going back to be reskilled and retrained. And I think that's actually a really good transition over to you, Ryan, as you're an alumni of Purdue. So you have that connection right away with Ragu, where he's talking from right now, and you are the president of Industrial Tech, the group out of Feyen Zylstra. Let's do a couple things. One, let's hit your background. Where are you from? You have a really interesting resume of experience, but I want to hit on a couple things. Smart Manufacturing Innovation Center at Feyen Zylstra is the first innovation center outside of academia, which I think is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. But also, there's a big focus on leveraging partners and manufacturers in the industry to really focus on supporting small to medium-sized manufacturers, but also create skilled trades and workforce programs. Dive into who you are, and let's talk about, what that vision is.
Sure. So I'm Brian Cahalane. I'm the president at FC's Industrial Tech Division, and we serve a diverse set of customers across a fairly wide group of industries. My journey here I've been a customer. I spent time at or as an end user at Goodyear, Colfax. I led a digital transformation initiative. I've been a systems integrator, a consultant with Deloitte. I developed a lot of the products that are now hitting the market, with General Electric, and ran the Rockwell software division for a while. I think my path hasn't exactly been direct, but I've managed to see a lot of different things and a lot of different angles. And for me, one of the important things is that a lot of these technologies are actually fairly mature, and for a while they've been somewhat locked up. The business models of the super majors, the Microsofts, the AWSs, the Rockwells, while they serve the broad industry, much of the discussion is between the Fortune 500, the big companies, the companies that have a serious infrastructure where they can afford to set the standards. And I'm not sure that's true on the whole, but I think that for it would be a fair statement that the mid-market, the smaller manufacturers tend to be catching up, or tend to always be playing catch up. Maybe they leapfrog because they're more nimble, but I don't want to say they've been bypassed by technology, but they've certainly they aren't as involved at a broad level. And I saw that as when I was leading some of the product initiatives. So like Sherri, I actually was just going to hit play on what Sherri said, because I thought it was fantastic that this is I think the stat is something like 85% of manufacturing is less than 20 million businesses or locations annual revenue. They aren't these huge processing lines. They aren't heavily vested in a bunch of research. Even from an educational standpoint, a lot of they're using every person that they have to make stuff. They aren't necessarily using every person they have to spend a bunch of time thinking about stuff. And so for us, it was super important to take these technologies that are rich, that are already proven. This is not, I love the idea of starting small and moving fast, but at the same time, that almost introduces the idea that you might fail. And these are proven technologies that have been around for years, and that have been in cycle in some of these larger companies for many years. And the ability to make more out of the technology that we already have, that's right at our fingertips, and the opportunity to, as manufacturing comes back to this country and as investment renews, to be able to do it in a way that leapfrogs the past and to do it right the first time, I think is just a really transformative opportunity for us. It's a really exciting opportunity. And I think that the partnering and collaborating both with peer SMIC groups as well as across industry, there's so much demand right now for these technologies, for these skills. There's such a shortage of resources. It is a great opportunity for us to just share and collaborate and take the best practices and propagate them. So the SESMII core mission and our core mission are super aligned in that regard.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. That's really good. I think that really, what you mentioned there really ties into what I want to talk to you about, Nick, who is our next guest. Nick is the executive director of 𝐒𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐭, and Nick, I'm going to have you explain what the acronym for 𝐒𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐭 is. But you're located at Case Western Reserve University, which is located in Ohio. Ohio has had a lot of news recently, from a little game over that happened in California recently to the NBA All-Star game that's going to be happening this weekend. But none of that matters. That's not exciting. That's not innovative. I want to do a couple things. Nick, first of all, give us an introduction, who you are, how did you get here, what is 𝐒𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐭, And then let's dive more into the deeper understanding of this collaboration with, when John mentioned in the beginning of here, we've had a bunch of SMIC centers, we're adding more, but the big focus is on all these different expertises of education and academia and integration are all getting together to collaborate. When I was out in North Carolina last week, I got a tour of their unwoven, industrial research lab, and walking through the robotics lab and their machining and their training, and they have a bunch of additive manufacturing processes. There's all these different expertises. Why is that important, and what's the whole goal of what we're building here?
Thanks, Jake, for having convening this conversation, inviting us today. So my journey has been another electrical engineer on the group here. Spent most of my career in industry building products, web, mobile, cloud, connected device products in test and measurement, industrial automation, various industries, and consulting in those and building standards for those kinds of products in industries that were beginning to adopt them. I joined the university a number of years ago to help lead this institute, the Institute for Smart, Secure, and Connected Systems, or ISACS, as you said for short. That's really focused on the industrial Internet of Things, smart manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, future manufacturing, Industry 4.0 being one thread of activity. There's a smart cities component, there's a connected healthcare component as well. And we work at both the education, research, and translational activities across those areas. So building new curriculum for our undergraduates and graduate students to teach them how to construct Internet of Things devices and systems, edge computing, AI at the edge, for instance. We work in the research space with the National Science Foundation, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, et cetera, to support our faculty in doing the research work they need to do to continue pushing the envelope. So the institute that I lead and co-lead a regional collaborative, one of the core areas that we're focused on is advanced manufacturing in Northeast Ohio in the greater Cleveland area, tied into regional economic development activities. So, this theme that John brought up and you reiterated of the network of networks, sort of the fractal nature of the CESMII family here. We are at the university sort of the hub of the SMIC in Cleveland, but we would not be able to do this program without our partners, which includes our local MEP magnet. The MEP has been mentioned several times in the conversation, and they are critical for engaging with many of the small to medium-sized manufacturers. We have something like 10,000 SMMs in a 100-mile radius that tie into the automotive supply chain, aerospace, and others. And the MEP provides critical services as well as engagement with those organizations and companies, from training to implementation of projects, referrals, et cetera. We also have a regional smart manufacturing cluster that helps bring together various entities in the region from an economic development standpoint, thinking about all the different elements of the training, the capital needs, the innovation, the leadership needs, et cetera, to really move the region forward. And it's not dissimilar in many cases from, the example Sherri shared of, a Rust Belt city reinventing itself with a deep and long history in manufacturing. We also have other partners, Bennett AI, bringing some software expertise to the puzzle. Advanced Manufacturing International, bringing some additional connectivity and smarts. And then this regional collaborative I mentioned with Cleveland State University, we're philanthropically funded to work on these kinds of initiatives for the regional benefit at both the education, workforce, and research. So in terms of what we're going to be focusing on our SMIC, it's really about SMM adoption, right? Harkening back to what John mentioned, the democratizing of smart manufacturing technologies. So, our approach is around outreach. So how do we bring more manufacturers to the conversation? How do we support them from kind of an assessment standpoint of where they're at in their journey and what sort of tools may be appropriate? When we say tools, that's not necessarily technology. I think everyone on the call here knows technology is not the problem right now. It's often focus, it's a skills thing. It's a leadership thing. It's a capital and investment issue in many cases. It's a cultural thing.
It's a
Right?
culture.
Moving from paper and clipboards to a data-driven dashboard, right, with better real-time insights. And the technology is useful at certain pieces of that journey, but there's a lot more involved. So we'll be doing assessments and then driving companies into certain conversations with certain partners, including our MEP, who may be able to meet them where they're at and help them implement a solution, and then create some lighthouses of innovation that will be useful for their peers, right? If you think about the innovator's dilemma and like crossing the chasm, right? We need lighthouses to show people what the path forward can look like in very different kinds of companies, right? As Ryan and other folks have mentioned, it's a different journey for a Fortune 500 company versus a 20-person machine shop versus a fabricator versus an injection molding company. So really working on that and then building some demo systems on campus. We're partnering with Lincoln Electric for one of those around some manual arc welding and trying to automate some of the integration of the arc delivered versus the arc, the engineering design criteria. So that's kind of the focus we have, and then partnering with our other SMICs in the constellation to steal the best programming we can for our region and the national good.
No, that's fantastic. Thanks so much, Nick. So we have a great audience still. We still have 150 people watching this right now. So appreciate all of you tending in, learning how smart manufacturing is impacting technology and culture. In case you missed the first few minutes of this conversation, we're all here together as a result of CESMII. And John, thank you for putting this together. And then Jillian in the background as well, who really did all the work. I know you're listening to this, Jillian. Shout out to you. Thank you so much for getting everyone connected here. But I want to leave some time for some questions and answers at the end. So as we go through the audience here, if there are questions, please put them in chat, and we're going to go ahead and try and answer them. One of the things I wanted to kick off right away is I always love hearing this from all the different thought leaders. What are you most excited for in 2022 that we're seeing adapt or impact manufacturing the most? And we're kind of going to open up to more of a full panel conversation now. So does anyone have something that they're seeing that they're really excited for happening in the next year, besides building out, your own smart manufacturing innovation center, looking outside that you're seeing in the industry?
Yeah, I'd love to start, Jake, just because one of the things that's so essential to manufacturing in this age is the worker, and yet the worker has been very much on the periphery of smart manufacturing up to this point. And as COVID became a thing in early 2020, and as manufacturing sort of reconfigured itself to try to figure out how to adapt to these bizarre new requirements, these new safety requirements, these new environmental requirements, all of a sudden the worker became a much more central component to manufacturing, and keeping that worker informed and training that worker to become more productive more quickly because of the churn throughout the workforce. And so that entire dynamic has only accelerated over the course of the last year and a half to 2 years, and I think represents a huge opportunity for manufacturers to differentiate themselves, to drive productivity by creating more competitive and more engaged workers. And that means that they become a real part of the value stream. And now the real challenge we have, those of us in the sort of education and the technology world, which is where all of us here at this sort of Smart Manufacturing Innovation Center universe connect or intersect, is how we can help the technology and the workflow and the person connect. There are enormous complexities, especially for the large manufacturers, in terms of all the different information systems that they sustain and support moving forward. But that worker and how they can become part of that digital thread, and how they can become part of the value add sort of innovation process for the plant floor, that to me represents a huge and exciting opportunity for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm going to highlight a question real quick. This is from Michael Hernandez. How important is force feedback in robotics? I'll take this question just because robots is a big thing that I focus on. I was at the Association for Advancing Automation's A3 Business Forum beginning of this year, and really there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the robotics industry. Last year, we saw a 28% increase in robotic sales here in North America. And for the second year in a row, we saw non-automotive robotics actually beating out the automotive industry in installed applications. So there's a lot of growth, but that second number is showing that there's a lot of adaptation for robotics in new industries. Going to your question of importance of force feedback, it's application dependent, but what we're seeing now as smart manufacturing evolving, there's a lot more applications that are becoming more flexible and working alongside operators or robots, or what we're calling doing workers' tasks, right? At the end of the day, we want people to work with a robot, not like a robot. So a robot has to replicate a lot of times what human tasks are doing. And by doing so, we get a lot of feedback, force feedback being one of them, artificial intelligence and AI deciding what the robot's going to pick, for example, at a depalletization application is another. But force feedback is extremely important because it's really creating one of the senses that make automation flexible beyond just more of a discrete path of motion. So that was a comment from the chat. If there's more comments in chat, guys, please feel free to ask them. We have a panel of experts up here willing to answer those questions. And of course, if you are enjoying the conversation, click that like button. It's right next to it. We love to see your reactions. We'd love to see how you are engaging, and feel free to share this conversation as well. Another question that came up was, how can trade high school students be reached for jobs in manufacturing? How can we work on the perception of manufacturing to get young people into the manufacturing industry? I would love to hear someone here to answer that question.
So I'll take that as a starter, Jake. One of the things that we're doing at the Digital Foundry is we're looking at what we're calling the whole pipeline of talent. We have programs through the Penn State New Kensington campus with 14 local K through 12 school districts, working with their educators to bring more content into the classrooms. The Digital Foundry is going to be an asset for them. We have already started putting in place some after-school programs, a summer camp where we're going to bring them in more of an exploratory format, getting them excited, interested. They're getting some content in the classrooms, but we want to bridge between that and what they will actually see in the manufacturing environment. And our training, while we have content for our traditional university students, again, we're building our training around that pipeline where we have content that's at what we're calling level 0, which is high school level. And it includes not only those who are college bound, but content that's going to be very hands-on training for those that are looking to go into the trades. We're partnering with our local career and technical center in our community, as well as getting some content that we're putting in the classrooms that then they can come to the Foundry and take what they've learned there and bring it with them. So I think that that's really critical to start early on getting an interest. There has been a stigma about manufacturing, and I think that, again, technology will help to make it more intriguing, more interesting. It's cleaner, it's safer, it has more of that tech for those digital natives who've grown up with electronics in their hand, and I think that those of us who have made a career here need to be ambassadors. I look at my career and I think that I would do it again in a heartbeat. There's nowhere else I could have built the experience, the exposure, the travels, the connections with brilliant people. So it's an exciting place to be. And so I think that we need to be ambassadors for that.
Absolutely. Ryan, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I was just going to pipe up because I think this complements what John was saying and Sherri was saying about, I think there's a lot of the technology players are rolling out technologies that are more and more do-it-yourself. Ragu was mentioning that the need for a data scientist versus putting the tools in the hands of almost everyone. The ability for a average worker, an engineer, a technician, an electrician, a pipe fitter, to add value by using these technologies and do it in a way that is so much more application aware, as opposed to like, I'm just there to do one job. I've got to wire up the sensor and then someone else has got to come in and turn the sensor on. Well, now I may not even have to wire that sensor up. I can take a battery powered sensor with a magnet, stick it on the wall, and all of a sudden what used to be just sensing light will sense heat, humidity, vibration, etc., and it derives so much more insight. And that person that might typically not have been part of the conversation at all can all of a sudden add value and make an impact in a way that used to take a small army to actually do. And I think that from especially on the skilled trades, like I think about a lot of these initiatives slow down in their deployment because of the complexities of actually putting the technology in, as opposed to getting value out of that solves a specific problem or a specific application case. And I think that the people that can actually affect that change most quickly are the operators, the people that are familiar with the lines, or the skilled trades who are actually there every day working on whatever it is that they're working on, and can unlock and enable some of these technologies. So I think there's the ability to impact. We joke at FZ that we like to call ourselves blue collar McKinsey, because we can add as much value as McKinsey Consulting, but we have a whole different practical side of how we do it. And to me, that's the exciting part. That's the thing that to me, 2022 is all about, is bringing a whole different set of people into the conversation, and the ability to actually transform with the support of a lot of these companies that are actually now trying to do something. So it's a really cool time to be in the space.
Absolutely. So I have time for about 2 more questions, then we're going to wrap it up with you, John. So this may be a question for you. What is the biggest bottleneck for manufacturers who are working to better exploit their existing data? Or anyone else on the panel who wants to add to that?
Yeah, well, I can. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ragu. I'll follow up after you.
No. Go ahead, please.
So I love that question. I was chomping at the bit to try to address that, because frankly, that's at the heart of our mission here at CESMII. The notion that whether you're a small manufacturer, mid-sized manufacturer, or large manufacturer, you're pretty much constrained by the same thing, and that is for the size and scale of your operation. There's a massive headwind around the sort of legacy approach to implementing smart manufacturing systems. If you're a large manufacturer, you have dozens and dozens of custom proprietary manufacturing systems critical for manufacturing operations, critical for producing parts this shift on this date at this point in time. And so each one of those represents a measure of complexity that represents enormous cost to sustain. And so anytime a great innovative new vendor comes along, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of new great IoT platforms and AR, VR vendors and AI machine learning vendors out there with great innovative new approaches, you as a manufacturer are left looking at the existing mess of systems that you have to sustain, wondering how you can deploy at scale another box, another proprietary solution. So that sort of headwind around integrating new innovative solutions with an existing set of complex and costly systems is a massive, massive headwind. If you're a small manufacturer, you likely don't have the kind of capital and the people on staff to look at some of those great innovative solutions. And so for you, it becomes a matter of cost and complexity as well. And so it's beholden on us. And I love your comment, Sherri, and Simon Jacobson from Gartner chimed in as well, talking about advocacy and servant leadership. It's up to us to try to bring this ecosystem forward, the vendors, the technology providers, the machine builders, together to sort of leave the proprietary thinking behind and work together to solve some of these complexity issues. That's at the heart of what we're doing. That's at the heart of what the Smart Manufacturing Innovation Centers are all about, to bring education and bring technology and bring cultural transformation to the marketplace at scale where the manufacturers are. And collectively, I think we can work on addressing these vital issues that will lead towards the democratization of smart manufacturing.
Yeah, Ragu, would you like to add on to that?
Great answer, John. So, but I'll add one more thing. It's a much lower level. So, assuming that industry already have the infrastructure to collect the data, they have the sensors, the platform for compute, for storage, and all of that. One thing that that is very essential to using the data is what kind of collection methods they are using, the quality of data they're collecting, the quantity of data, and also the diversity of data. So, that's much more at the lower level.
I would say that just to tag on to that, I think the data without the context, data without the rest of the environment and around it is less useful. But the data isn't useful in and of itself. It's what problems we're trying to solve. Are we trying to improve inventory turns? Are we trying to improve OEE? Like, what is the thing that's actually going to have a business impact? And then you have to move down the pipeline from there. What's the data? What are the insights that are actually going to be actionable to move the business? Because if you're not moving the business, you're not going to get any support from the organization.
Yeah. If I can add one brief comment as well, innovation has never been an issue for U.S. manufacturing. I think innovation is the hallmark of U.S. manufacturing. We're solving problems today like we've solved problems 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. The problem is how can we do so with a significantly reduced level of cost and complexity? That's the problem that I think we can address collectively as an ecosystem.
Fantastic. Nick, I was going to we haven't heard from you in a while, so I was going to queue this question up for you, and this would be our last question.
I'll kick it off, right?
Yeah,
so
perfect.
I think prior to the pandemic, manufacturing was moving along and there was strong interest. But as everyone has seen, it's shone a light on the fragility of our supply chains, national security implications, et cetera. So I think we are poised for bipartisan congressional support, senior leadership support, to reshore, onshore, and reinvest in our manufacturing capabilities and supply chain. So I think we're at the birth of another cycle of growth for manufacturing domestically.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up the conversation, I encourage all of you who are watching us throughout this, go to the attendees, connect with all of these people here on LinkedIn so you can see all the speakers who are part of this conversation. Would love for you to connect with all of them and continue these conversations. John, as we wrap up with just a few minutes left, any other big takeaways you want for our audience in regards to the SESMII organization?
Yeah, I would say this. If you look at the collection of leaders, thought leaders, servant leaders here on this conversation today, even the folks in the audience, I mean, I recognize many of the names and the faces I see here. This represents an enormous set of important industry knowledge and perspective that I think will allow us to drive this industry forward. SESMII is about a vendor agnostic environment to build those lighthouse applications, to build that lighthouse collaboration, to facilitate those partnerships. And I saw one of the questions in the thread before about how can I, as a small startup, get engaged, and that's what this ecosystem, that's what this group of Smart Manufacturing Innovation Centers is all about. By industry, by technology, by affinity group like small and mid-sized manufacturing, working together to bring the ecosystem forward to solve important ecosystem problems. We here at SESMII are privileged to have $140 million of taxpayer funds to deploy with through our partnerships and through our Smart Manufacturing Innovation Centers, and to come alongside those existing organizations who are already doing great work and try to align around some of these really important ideas. And I think Sherri said it first, that the network of networks. This represents an opportunity for us to bring the best and the brightest thinkers and minds and innovators together, not just for our own good. And I firmly believe that all of us have to focus first on our own business models and furthering our collective respective ways of funding our organizations. That's why we get paid where we get paid. But at the same time, if we can do that in a way that advances the greater good, why would we not do that? And so I would just urge everyone to connect, as you said, Jake, to get engaged, bring what you have, your energies, your thoughts, your innovative ideas to this body of smart manufacturing innovation centers and CESMII, and let's work together to make a real difference in 2022.
No, that's fantastic. And if people want to learn more, they can go to www.cesmi.org. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. Got the cue in. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Especially thank you panelists. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Sherri. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, John. Thank you, Ragu, for all joining us. After we end the stream, go ahead and stick around for just a few minutes. I have a few things I want to take away with you guys. But for the audience here who joined us for this entire panel, we really appreciate your time. The conversation does not stop here, though. Like I said, connect with the people here, reach out to CESMII. I noticed there's quite a few comments going through the chat to learn how you can get involved in growth in the manufacturing industry. Growth in smart manufacturing isn't done by a product or a program. It's done as an entire community within the manufacturing space. So until next time, we'll stick around. Thank you for joining another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing. I'm Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks.